Pete Bancroft and I were met in Glendale High School, and we both enlisted in a class by Frank Gulick, who my memory was that he taught just general science, but he did have an interest in gems and minerals, and probably geology.
He wanted to use the Benitoite mine as an example of what you would use chemistry for. And he said, you know, these stones are hidden stones, most of them, and they're covered by a white mineral called natrolite. And you use a concentrated acid which eats away the natrolite, but it doesn't harm the benitoite.
So he brought that up, knowing that Pete and I were interested specifically in minerals. He brought that up to us. So, do you know about benitoite? And what's that kind of thing? And so that's how we first heard about it.
He was a very modest fellow. We wanted to be sure he wasn't just building up a big story here. It sounded good, and it really wasn't that good, but it turned out to be just exactly as he said.
We had this idea to go right away because we were fired up to go. And we were spending time like in Griffith Park digging out calcite crystals and dumb things like that. And this is a major event that we could get involved. We wanted to get involved in. I don't know exactly how long we prevailed upon Frank to get arrange to have us go there, but he finally contacted Mrs. Dallas, and he was friendly with her, having gone on that expedition after getting her permission.
And he said, if you want to do the same thing, I'll give you their phone number and you can take it from there. So we got a hold of Mrs. Dallas and said, I think the two of us, my buddy and I, would like to visit your mine if we could have permission to do it. She said, I'll send a notice out. Is there time to get the notice to you? And I said, yes, there is.
And then we couldn't wait to go. And Frank had some business, I think in San Francisco.
And he said, well, I'll tell you what, if we could do this over Easter vacation. He said, I'm driving up through Coalinga, which is the closest town to the Benitoite mine. And I could take you up and drop you off there, and then you'd only have to walk in 25 miles up into the mountains.
We had heavy packs. We had, it was close to 2 weeks of food. In those days, it was mostly canned food that we took, which was heavy. And we had a few hand tools for mining or for breaking rock or whatever.
Wrecking bars and camp goods and sleeping bags, rifles and pistols and all the stuff we had to have.
We shouldered our packs and we couldn't get up. They were so heavy. So we had to help each other.
Now it's the problem of getting from Coalinga 25 miles up into the mountains.
God, that steep climb was really tough. And I think we're both kind of silently weeping to ourselves. Why did we get into this kind of thing?
The first night, we rolled our sleeping bags out on the wooden floor of this old cabin, and it was really dilapidated. The doors hung, squeaked. There was only one front door. The windows wouldn't work.
The rats and mice had been living there for years with no one up there.
And sometime during the night, there was a strange rustling sound that we could hear, and it didn't sound right. And I said, hey, Ed, wake up. Have you got your flashlight handy? So he got his light out, and he said, my God, there's 4 rattlesnakes in here with us.
And one guy would have a light, the flashlight, and the other guy would have a 22 short.
Well, we counted 3, and then all hell broke loose. This is inside the cabin. We'd killed 3 of them, but the other one got away. And which meant for every night after that, we were in pins and needles, whether we were safe or not. But we killed 3 of them.
The next morning, we couldn't wait to eat something and get out of there, because we could see across the hill about the same, just a little up from the level of the cabin, on the opposite side of the stream, workings and outcrops of the white natrolite.
Sometimes if you just had a seam of natrolite and no bumps, that meant that there weren't any crystals under there. The crystal forced the natrolite as it formed to bump over itself. So and we found quite a few pieces.
We became adept at selecting material without even seeing the benitoite. We just knew that with that muriatic acid method, we were going to get some nice specimens.
By chance, I think it was Ed, was fiddling around in a bunch of stuff that looked like it was blown up or something. There wasn't any natrolite, and yet there were bits of blue. And it became very apparent that this was a deposit that had altered. It apparently was acid in the water, rainwater and so on. And there were some stones already etched out loose that were substantial.
I started digging into a very altered, decomposed vein of natrolite, and I pulled out a crystal of benitoite, opaque and ugly, but it was about 1 3/4 inches on an edge, and that made my eyes open. And then I found some large neptunites. Most of the neptunites were twins, and they're ugly, but they're nice singles like that. And so we both were finding good things, and so Pete was getting just as much or more than I was.
We'd be working along, and all of a sudden he'd say 3/4 carat. Well, that's all he had to do, and I knew he'd found another piece and put that in his pocket. And then I'd go 1/2 carat, and he said, "My God, this one's way over 2 carats." And I thought, "Oh, come on, Ed. We said we wouldn't exaggerate." Well, we reaffirmed what he said, and I took a look and I said, "I think you're dead right. I think it's right at 2 or a little over 2 carats. That's substantial." This meant that we would, with a couple of those, we could pay for the trip, which was hard for us to do. We didn't have much money to be doing these things.
Pete and I had plans like that would avoid contention, and so if we mined something in great quantities that we had a lot of, that we could divide into two, we had enough that we divided into 2 even piles. One of us would flip, we'd flip, and one of us would have the duty of separating in 2 equal piles, but the other guy would get to choose which pile he wanted. And so that kept us honest.
We found 2 pieces that one cut 445 carats, and the other one 425. And we always had to toss a coin for who got first choice, since both the stones were not the same, and obviously the bigger one would be the prize, super prize, but both of them were good ones. And he won, so he chose the 445.
Not knowing any cutters, I gave it to, when I finally got back to Glendale, to Divern to cut. And well, when he saw it, he almost fainted, because his largest stone was 175, and he immediately hated me. And so he tried every device to win me away. He even offered me $16 for it before we had it cut. And so that was tempting, but I just held out.
So for 2 punk kids just not really knowing what we were doing, we did pretty well. And we knew it.